And now I'd like to call for a motion to adopt this afternoon's agenda.
So moved.
And can I get a second, please?
Second.
Mayor Muller, I'm missing your vote.
Yeah, I got green. I'll do it one more time.
Time. You want me to record it as a yes?
Did it show up?
It did not.
Okay, here we go. I guess it's like the gremlin kind of moves up and down the dais on who's not going to work that night. Yes, I definitely will approve tonight's agenda. And next we have 3 proclamations. The first one is for Public Works Week. I think John Ferns could you join me at the podium, please? So, proclamation to all of Public Works and those in the town of Yountville. This is a Public Works Appreciation Week from May 21st to May 27th, 2023. Whereas the town of Yountville, Public Works infrastructure, facilities, and services play a crucial role in the daily life and well-being of our communities, providing us with safe drinking water, reliable waste management, and many other essential needs for residents, businesses, and visitors. And whereas the town of Yountville Public Works staff works tirelessly and often behind the scenes to design, build, operate, and maintain the infrastructure and services that we rely on every day. And whereas the dedication, skill, and experience of our town of Yountville Public Works staff are integral to the quality and longevity of town facilities and systems, the natural beauty of parks and open space, as well as the planning, design, construction of a significant number of capital projects. And whereas the efficiency of the Yountville Public Works personnel is influenced by the people's positive attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas our Public Works staff prioritize high-quality service delivery to Yountville residents, visitors, and businesses, regardless of the timing or natural conditions in which they work, including during wildfires, floods, power outages, severe weather, and other challenging circumstances. And whereas the Public Works Week is a time to recognize and celebrate the contributions of public work professionals to our quality of life, economy, and environment, and to raise public awareness about the importance of investing in and supporting public works for the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Margie Moeller, as mayor of the town of Yountville, do hereby proclaim May 21st to the 27th, 2023, as Public Works Appreciation Week. I call upon all citizens and civic organizations in the town of Yountville to acquaint themselves with the process involved in providing our public works services and to recognize the contributions Public Works staff makes every day to our health, safety, and high quality of life. So, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. We in Public Works like to say that the town of Yountville is our Broadway play or our movie set, and we're your cast of characters that make it all come together, and you all are the cast of actors that live your lives out every day. So if you don't see us and everything's okay, that means we're doing our job. Occasionally see us when we have to come out and fix things, but for the most part, we try to get all of our work done quietly in the background and make sure the town and our visitors can enjoy the life that is Yountville. And with that said, I do want to take a moment and request a moment of silence for our fallen person, Jim Wynn. We miss him very much already. So, a moment of silence, please. And thank you again, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it.
So our second proclamation tonight is in honor of the Huey vets. And is Jennifer here? Guess not. I will just, you might have, did I see her outside? Nope. So I'm just going to read the proclamation from the dais up here. So this is a proclamation in honor of Huey vets. Whereas the Huey helicopter has played a significant role in military operations and has contributed to the safety and security of our nation, and whereas the Huey helicopter has demonstrated exceptional versatility and reliability in a variety of missions, including search and rescue, disaster relief, and law enforcement operations, and whereas the Huey helicopter has been instrumental in transporting troops, supplies, and equipment to and from the battlefield and has provided critical medical evacuation services to wounded soldiers, and whereas helicopters played an integral role in the Vietnam War. Sadly, over 10% of all combat and combat support deaths in Vietnam occurred in helicopter operations, a total of 6,175. 2,202 were pilots, 2,704 air crew, and 1,269 passengers. And whereas the 135th Assault Helicopter Company was composed of 37 members, both U.S. Army and Royal Australian Naval personnel. Because of this unique composition, the 135th was considered an experimental military unit, or EMU. Whereas EMU 309 is a 1965 UH-1H Huey Slick helicopter fully restored to its 1969-1972 combat configuration during the Vietnam War. EMU 309 is owned and operated by EMU Inc., a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was founded by Vietnam veterans who served in EMU 309 during the Vietnam War. And whereas the mission of EMU Inc. is to preserve the history of the Huey helicopter, to honor the memory of those who served during the Vietnam War, and to serve our nation's veterans impacted by PTSD, TBI, and other wounds of war. And whereas the Huey helicopter has become an iconic symbol of American military power and has earned the respect and admiration of people around the world. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Margie Moeller, as mayor of the town of Yountville, do hereby proclaim our gratitude for our veterans' heroic service and recognition and recognize the contributions of this remarkable aircraft to our nation's defense and security. There will be an event at the Veterans Home on May the 21st. The public is invited. They are requesting reservations. There's going to be a morning baseball game. We're going to be giving the proclamation to the actual Huey vets and their dog. And then there will be a pinning ceremony for all the Vietnam vets, followed by the Mixed Nuts baseball game. So it'll be a big day up there. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew about that. And our third proclamation today is for Historic Preservation Month, and I understand that Terry and Vince are in the audience to come up and accept this. So I'll give you this, and I'll give you a few minutes then afterwards to introduce yourselves. Okay, great. Thank you very much for coming. This is a proclamation in recognition of Historic Preservation Month, May 2023, whereas the National Park Service's Register of Historic Places is authorized by the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. The National Register program coordinates and supports public and private efforts to identify, evaluate, protect, and adapt for reuse America's historic, cultural, and archaeological resources. And whereas in 1973, May was designated Preservation Month to raise awareness of historic preservation and the continuity it builds between past, present, and future, to instill national and community pride, promote heritage tourism, and show the social, economic, and environmental benefits of historic preservation. Whereas Napa County is home to irreplaceable historic resources, including stone bridges, and we have quite a few of those out there, and 19th century wineries, Victorian commercial buildings, our WPA-era post offices, as well as architect-designed residents. And whereas Napa County Landmarks, founded in 1974 by John Whitridge, is a nonprofit organization that fosters appreciation and preservation of historic buildings, sites, and districts throughout education programs, public policy, research, and technical assistance. And whereas Napa County Landmarks creates community discussion and preservation of our historic resources to protect and reuse them. For example, here in Yountville, Grosinger's Winery, now reused as V Marketplace. It creates jobs, stabilizes property values, and preserves existing housing stock. And whereas throughout the year, Napa County Landmarks creates awareness of historic preservation through the Holiday Candle Tour, annual preservation awards, walking and biking tours of historic areas, as well as the creation of the 10 threatened treasured list of endangered historic places facing potential demolition. And whereas Napa County Landmarks provides high school scholarships to seniors to promote interest in Napa County history in our local youth, as well as distributes a Napa coloring book free to all third graders in Napa County. And whereas Napa County Landmarks recognizes Napa County preservation through the Preservationist of the Year Award and Awards of Merit to honor those and who restore, rehabilitate, and adapt an historic resource for continued use. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Margie Moeller, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, on behalf of the Yountville Town Council, do hereby proclaim May as Historic Preservation Month and call on our citizens to support preservation and Napa County Landmarks efforts to preserve the rich history of Napa County. So, thank you very much. And I'll give you these. Where would you like us to be? Right here?
Hey, everybody. Fuzzy Pickles. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Feel free to introduce yourselves and say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Vincent Traverso, and this is Terry Wunderlich, President of Napa County Landmarks. And on behalf of the entire Board of Directors and the entire organization of Napa County Landmarks, which has membership not only here in the town of Yountville, but in every municipality and county district of the county, we are grateful for this proclamation. Yountville, of course, has been a proud partner in preservation projects across the years. V Marketplace was mentioned. Most recently, we can look at the community church that you guys have partnered so well with the redevelopers and the restorers, but also in the immediate area. We have historic wineries. We can think of Brian Wise's bank building up above the Sleeping Lady Vineyard, and citizens of Yountville that have taken an active interest in historic buildings and their preservation. So on behalf of Napa County Landmarks, the Board of Directors, thank you very, very much.
Okay, now ready for public comment on matters not listed on today's agenda. Come up and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Jim Hinton. I'm from Napa, California, and first I just wanted to congratulate, is it Mr. Ferens here? I used to see him at the Napa City Council meetings all the time, and I understand he does a very good impression of me. It's very funny, I hear. Any chance I could ever see that? The one you give for Leadership Napa Valley?
Is that something you'd like to do?
It's not something I've done in the past, and so I'm not sure what. Mr.
Okay, well maybe I'm
referring to.
confused, but yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, I'd like to say, and I was not
And we have 3 minutes.
I'm taken by the moment, but Jimmy Nguyen was a very good friend of mine. I was fortunate enough to meet him when he was a junior in high school, and me and my buddies were camping up on the Yuba River, and he came up with my brother and some friends and joined us. And he was 4 or 5 years younger than me and my friends, but unlike his other buddies, Jimmy fit right in with all of us. He was just the nicest, most easygoing guy. No matter how many beers we drank or whatever, Jimmy never had any kind of problems with anybody, or anybody. I never had no problems with Jimmy. He used to hang out with us growing up. Well, not growing up, but his middle years before he got married and settled down. But we went to George Strait concerts, and we had so much fun with him. He was just the nicest guy you could ever want to know growing up around Napa County. And me and a lot of my friends were truly saddened last week when we heard what happened. And we're all going to miss him a lot. And I just want to say that I appreciate you recognizing him. He was a great person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Christy, come on up and tell us your name.
Christy Pistone, Director of Government Affairs for Waste Connections in California and also Upper Valley Disposal and Recycling Services. I'd like to say congratulations to the Public Works team. We work with Public Works every day in all the communities that we service, and we've enjoyed a great relationship here in Yountville and a long-time relationship with John Ferens over the years. So congratulations on your hard work. I thought I would just pop in and give you an update on what's happening. I have a new position as Director of Government Affairs in the state of California, so I'm spending more time in Sacramento, and I'm learning a lot about pending regulations, and I just wanted you to know that I'm an outlet for all of the council members if they have questions about recycling, resource recovery, renewable energy programs and whatnot. And so I just want to make sure you can reach out to me at any time to talk about what's happening in Sacramento. One of the biggest issues that we're tackling right now is called SB 54, which is the packaging. It's sort of a large bill. It's in its formal rulemaking, and it will become law probably in 2025. Well, it is a law, but when we start to see, and it's a packaging, it's a complete overview of the packaging that we have. And I know a lot of questions that we get is what's compostable and what's not compostable. And in this bill, materials will either be recyclable or compostable, and you will not be able to market products in the state of California unless they fall into one of the other buckets. There will be carve-outs for medication, veterinarian supplies, formula, things like that will be carved out. Also, the bottle bill is carved out. But as far as all that packaging and confusion that we're all dealing with right now, we'll get to a place where it's very much a mainstream. And the last thing I would just say, because we get a lot of questions about what is compostable and what's not, and because the compost that we're making is certified organic with the 2 agencies, the Organic Materials Research Organization in Oregon and also the California Department of Food and Ag, much of that compostable stuff that you read about actually has plastics in it, and we're not accepting anything that says PLA plastic because it actually has the PFAS in it. And We market our material to the Napa Valley, Sonoma County, and the wine industry, and also row crops. And everybody's very concerned about that. And so we have made a decision until materials have a different background that actually fully break down and don't have any PLA in them. We will not be accepting them in our composting program. So with that, I'm gonna let Andy speak for a minute about his outreach work. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That was very informative. Andy, can you come up and give us your full name?
My full name? I'm Mark Andrew Buck Jr., but I go by Andy, and I'm our community outreach specialist, I guess, at Upper Valley Disposal and Recycling, recently acquired by Waste Connections. First off, thank you for having me here. Appreciate it. Town of Yountville is one of the most unique places I've ever gotten the chance and privilege to work in. It's amazing to see all of these very passionate people here, even at the City Council meeting today, and it reflects in all of your businesses that I work with. Everyone is really passionate about keeping this community not only profitable, but also very sustainable. And sustainability goes in many ways, right? Sustainable for the community that lives here, sustainability for the environment, and that's a big part of what I work with is the sustainability aspect of the environment, right? So currently what we're doing is we're working with businesses and multifamily dwellings in all throughout Upper Napa Valley, so everywhere from Calistoga down to Yountville, trying to help businesses and multifamily dwellings become compliant with a state law called SB 1383. This law requires all businesses and residents to recycle and compost, right? All organics need to be out of the landfill as much as possible. We have multiple programs that we offer to these businesses. The two that apply to most when it comes to organics are our compost cart collection program and our food waste cart collection program. Our food waste cart collection program is aimed at restaurants and those wineries with commercial kitchens. Our commercial cart collection program is what a lot of you guys use at your homes, and that's also available to businesses, right? These two programs basically will cover any business when it comes to their organics needs, right? The programs are both very affordable. The food waste program, in fact, comes bundled with services that they already have, as long as they are this program is deemed applicable to them, right? So basically what we're trying to do is help everyone to divert as much material from the landfill as possible. We have a great team. I am the person from Upper Valley that is responsible down here, but recently I've been able to work with Kendra. I know she's in here somewhere. She's been fantastic as the new code enforcement representative with Town of Yountville. It's been a pleasure working with her so far. And then Amanda Griffiths with the county and the JPA. The three of us together coordinate to work with large businesses. I just ran a report this morning, and the majority of the businesses in Yountville are already compliant, so way to go. We still have a few more that we're tackling, but the main thing to just kind of hammer home before I'm done here is that, just like Christy was saying, we're trying to keep the BPI plastics out of our compost and food waste streams. So we want all the food sold paper, and yard waste out of the landfill, but we're currently working with businesses to try and find reusable options for silverware, plates, all of that for in-house dining, and for outside of their in-house dining, trying to find products that are truly compostable with us, fitting our regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming and giving us that great announcement. Appreciate it. Okay, we've got, we have continued public comment, matters not on our agenda.
Yeah, this is
Can you
part of public
speak
comment.
into the
Yeah,
microphone
this is
and
part
give
of-
us your name?
Okay, my name is Neil Water. I'm a member of the Napa Solano Area Agency on Aging Advisory Committee, and just wanted to announce that Governor Newsom has announced that
Can you speak in, I want everyone
May-
on TV and streaming to be able to hear you.
May is Older Adults Month. Napa County is home to 40,000 residents aged 60 or older, many of them who live in Yountville, many of whom are engaged in community life, and all of whom deserve to age with dignity, connected to their community, and being safe in their homes. The proclamation summons all Californians to join me meaning the governor, and our local, state, and federal leaders in recognizing the invaluable contributions of millions of older adults to our past, present, and future.
Thank you very much for that.
And we also want to thank
Can you also state your name and speak into the microphone, please?
Susan Enzi, also with the Advisory Council for Area Agency on Aging. And we want to thank Yountville. You have a very large population of older adults, and we know that, and the whole idea of the proclamation, the May thrust is that in everything that is considered in the city, that older adults are considered and brought in. And I know Yountville does a good job of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Anybody else for public comment? Any other items? Okay, seeing none, we now have our consent calendar. We have 5 items. Any public comment on our consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion and a second.
Move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Our vote screen show up. Did mine show up this time? Oh, good. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And we have 2 presentations. The first one is our annual Affordable and Workforce Housing Measure S Oversight Committee update. And we have a couple members from that present today, but I think Celia is going to get us going, correct?
Yes.
All right,
thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Moeller and council members. Today we do have the annual report and presentation to Town Council from the Measure S Affordable and Workforce Housing Oversight Committee as required by Resolution number 19-3542 that established the committee back in 2019. With us today, we have Chair of the Committee, Mr. Max Compagnon, here to take us through the presentation. I'd like to invite Chair Compagnon to come up to the podium, and he will take us through this brief PowerPoint.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm supposed to look at this clicker as well. Okay. So I'm representing the Almighty Committee for the Affordable and Work Housing in Yountville. Here it goes. The committee members are Joseph, Sandy, Lisa, and myself. Some of us have been here for a few months, some of us for a couple of years. This committee was established as part of the additional 1% transient occupancy tax measure passed by the voters in the town of Yountville in 2018. The role of the committee is to review the expenditure incurred by the town in support of affordable and workforce housing and to confirm that these met the intent of the ordinance. A little bit of a briefing and timeline here. So as you can see, Bonner, Fagan, and Bertolucci were into that committee October 2nd, 2022, and myself in 2021, Member Compagnon here. We had 2 meetings since I've been there, one in October 22, one recently in March. The first one, we did the oath of office for the new committee members, and then we reviewed the Measure S fund balances at the time. So brief meeting. And the second one, similar introduction of new committee members that had been there prior, since the last meeting, the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting, and the review of the Measure S fund balance, which I will come to in a second. What has been done with this fund since the last time? So $336,000 were used to purchase a property, 6631 Oak Leaf Court, as approved by the Town Council. The Town Council then approved the sale of that same property to the Napa Valley Community Housing to retain the deed as a restricted affordable rental unit at the low income level. The property was sold off as a loan to be repaid to the same measure over 40 years. Documentation of all this transaction was presented to the Oversight Committee for us to look at it. And that's the only transaction or activity that we've seen on the fund so far in the last at least 2 years that I've been here. Special thank you to Hillary Tripe and Stephanie Levitt for being serving on the committee previously. We do have vacancies, and you know how to get there on Town of Yountville notices. And currently, more importantly, the funds available at the end of April are $2,543,143. And that's about it for the activity of this very busy committee at the Town of Yountville.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Max, and congratulations on your Chamber Award as well, too.
Fantastic, yes.
You're a busy guy. Any questions from the council?
Yes, I had a question. I just wanted, and I think this is probably more to Celia. So the balance is as of April 30, 2023 or 2022?
Apologies, yes, that's a typo. It should be 2023.
Yeah, no, I'm still writing 2022. I thought that was true, but I just wanted to double check. Thank you. And thank you also, Max. And,
thank you.
And I see Sandy and others in the audience, so thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, just thank you for the presentation, and also thank you to board members Fagan and Bonner for being here as well tonight. Thank you. I'm sure if your last other member is Lisa Bertolucci, but I don't still see her there. So.
Just mentioning we still have one vacancy, and you can, of course, go on townofyountville.com. Hopefully we can fill that seat soon.
Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. Thanks for coming. Our second presentation is from Bartle Wells Associates, who've developed our 2023 Development Impact Fee Study. We're going to get progress and a draft report. And
Yes.
I think
Thank you
Celia
again.
is going to start us off on that as well.
Yes, I will introduce Michael DeGroot, who is with us from Bartle Wells and Associates, who has been working with town staff for about last 7 months in compliance with the Mitigation Fee Act to conduct a development impact fee study. So this presentation is to give an update to town council on the progress of that impact fee study and review the draft report that was attached to the staff report and give opportunity for questions and feedback from council.
Thank you. Michael, welcome.
Hello, good evening. So I'd like to discuss the overview of the presentation here. I have an overview, then talk about the last time these fees were updated, which was done in 2005. Talk about the legal requirements and then changes since 2005, and then discuss the proposed fees and current fee comparison. And as Celia mentioned, we're not looking for adoption at this meeting. This is just a workshop and to get your feedback and answer questions. So the 2005 Development Impact Fee and Capacity Fee Study allocated the value of new and existing capital facilities to new development, and it created new fees. The new fees covered civic facilities, flood control projects, and parks. And it also updated your existing fees for water and sewer, traffic, and affordable housing. And the 2005 study abided by California Government Code 66,000, which requires that DIF revenues be less than the value of the facilities benefiting new development, and also that fee revenues can only be used to fund construction of the identified improvements. So this is California Government Code 66,000, and it has procedural requirements such as to avoid commingling funds, provide the public an annual description of any funds being held, and to reimburse if the funds are held too long without spending. And there are substantive requirements of this code, meaning you need to identify the purpose and use of the fee, determine a reasonable relationship between the fee and the type of development, and determine a reasonable relationship between the amount of the fee and the cost of the facility being funded. So in 2005, the methodology included a buy-in component and a future infrastructure component. And this was for both the capacity fees and the development impact fees. So in 2005, a certain amount of the capacity was available in the existing system, and new connections were required to pay a portion of the overall system value. And in 2005, about 14% of development was intended to benefit future, and the costs were allocated accordingly. So this methodology applied to the water capacity fee, sewer capacity fee, parks and rec, public safety, civic facilities, traffic, and drainage and flood control. And the affordable housing impact fee used a different methodology, which was based on the cost of affordable housing. So there's been some updates to the legislation regarding development impact fees. So I want to just go over what the development impact fee is first. And the development impact fees are for the purpose of covering costs of new levels of service provided by a public facility. So it's not a tax or a special assessment. So these are one-time charges, and they do not include Section 66477 fees, which are park offset fees, processing fees, or redevelopment project fees. And the statutory framework for these fees is the Mitigation Fee Act, and that applies to a monetary exaction imposed by a local agency as a condition of approval of a development project to defray public facility costs related to the project. So a development project is where a permit needs to be issued. And the public agency must establish the fee's purpose, that the fee's use and public needs are reasonably related to the type of development, and it cannot impose a fee for general purposes. Now, there's been some updates and new laws, which there's a new procedural requirement that has a 5-year accounting requirement. So every 5 years, the agency needs to do an accounting of the types of fees being held and for which upcoming projects, and failure to comply would require the agency to refund the money. So if the agency has accrued sufficient funds to fund the project and does not do so for 180 days, they may be required to refund it. And you also need to include a capital improvement plan in the Nexus study. There's some new substantive requirements since the previous study. So the agency needs to prepare and adopt a Nexus study, which we're preparing. And the Nexus study needs to identify the existing level of service for the public facilities. And you need to include consideration of already collected DIF revenues. And fees for residential development need to be imposed based on square footage unless we can make a specific finding that a different method of apportionment will satisfy the requirement. And there are some cases that indicate that the buy-in component of the fee is not allowed for DIFs anymore. So that means only future capital costs can be considered for DIFs. However, capacity fees, you can still include the buy-in component, which we did for this study. So these are the proposed fees, and first I'd like to start with water capacity. So this is a connection fee for that recovers a buy-in for the existing water system, and we're proposing a fee based on the size of the meter, based on American Water Works Association meter equivalent ratios. And the proposed fee for the lowest meter, which is a 3/4 inch, would be $4,662. And that would increase based on the size of the meter up to $248,000. There's also a fee for fire line from 2-inch lines up to 8-inch. And we're proposing a fee for accessory dwelling units based on square footage of floor area. So that would be $2.23. And accessory dwelling units, they can be charged if it's a detached structure from the single-family home, or if it extends more than 150 feet from the existing footprint. So you can't charge accessory dwelling units within the footprint of the existing home. And for sewer, we're proposing to also charge these customers based on meter size. And so the lowest customer connection, the 3/4 inch, would be $10,795, and then that would increase up to the 8-inch meter, which would be $575,000. And then for commercial, we're recommending strength categories, so low, medium, and high, and the fee would be multiplied by that strength factor. So churches, schools, group homes, town use office, and barber shop would all be considered low use or low strength, and that would be multiplied by 0.7. Medium strength would be hotel and inns and multi-commercial, and then high strength are restaurants and tasting rooms, and they would be multiplied by 2.6. And similarly, we're proposing a square footage of floor area charge for ADUs. And so this is the total proposed fees and current fee comparison. And so currently you're charging about $4,847 for water, and that would go to $4,662. Sewer would go from $8,858 to $10,795. Civic facilities impact fee, that would go from $4,418 to $769. Drainage and flood control impact fee, $730 would go to $335. Traffic would go from $6,923 to $2,876. Parks and Rec would go from $1,690 to $783. We're proposing eliminating the public safety impact fee and implementing a new fee called Community Projects Impact Fee for $1,350. And then we're proposing an affordable housing fair share fee of $4,333. Now, your existing affordable housing fees are not imposed on residential development. This new fee would be potentially imposed on all development. However, because you don't have any affordable housing in the pipeline, what we're recommending, but you may in the future, what we're recommending to do is to adopt the fee, but not actually implement it. So just in case there's actually some low-income housing development in the future, you'll have the fee ready to go. For undergrounding of utilities, currently this iteration is showing eliminating this fee. However, we've done some work on this, and we've identified a $200,000 project for this fee. So in the next iteration, we'll have a charge for undergrounding of utilities. And that's it for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for coming. So what I'm going to do is see if any council members have some questions for you or any of the other staff. I'll go around a couple times and I'll call for public comment, and we'll come back and discuss it. When we do, we might have you come back up then if we have any more discussion questions. So, all right. So, any initial questions over here to my left? Everyone's looking down. I'm going to turn to my right. Councilmember Tripp.
No, I saw that Eric had his hand up, so I'll go after him.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. So I was going to generally ask, but in your report, you did make some, in terms of the different types of fees, we dropped one, you added a couple more, and is that generally from your experience in other communities? When you're looking at the communities and the impacts, are you adding, are there any other types of fees that might be relevant to a small community like Yountville, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially, the fees need to be based on your capital improvements in the future. And so the fees that we're proposing really are reflective of your capital improvement program. The one fee that's not really part of the CIP is the affordable housing, which is just based on the cost to construct the affordable housing. So in general, I think these fees are covering a wide range of city assets, and it is comprehensive.
Councilmember Tripp.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
One more question.
If it's okay.
So I have a question just generally about the concept of development impact fees for ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So from your experience in other communities, are fees structured depending, is there a fee structure available if that ADU has an affordability benefit to the community, or if there isn't it? I mean, but within development impact fees, can we adjust or eliminate those type of fees depending on our housing policy?
Yes, so actually a lot of agencies don't charge ADUs capacity fees. So that's an option, is to just not charge ADUs. And I'm sorry, was there?
Well, I guess an interesting thing is we have people adding ADUs. I mean, on individual lots. So this development impact fee includes for an individual property owner adding an ADU. It could be involved in a development impact fee. It's not necessarily a large project of 10 or 15 homes adding ADUs. This is relevant for any development project, individual lots before the town. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Anything that
Maybe our
Yeah, and I'll
town
just
attorney
add.
would like to address this too.
Yeah, I'll just add one additional piece to this. The state ADU law already has restrictions on when the town can impose impact or capacity fees on ADUs. When they are attached and do not have a separate meter, they wouldn't be charged these. So these are for the detached, separate metered ones that are going in. Yes, some jurisdictions don't, but if they are included in here within your program, as Michael mentioned, this is about funding pre-identified facilities and infrastructure. And so once they are identified as part of that program, the fees need to be collected so that everyone else who pays into the program also has the facilities and infrastructure built that they are funding. Right. So once the town creates a holistic program, everyone subject to that fee pays in.
Councilmember, are you done, Vice Mayor?
Well, maybe it's just more a longer discussion. You said like relative to state housing law and fee structure. So I understand there's some level of creating a fee and that it be universally that it be there and universally impacting all, but within cities' policies of affordable housing, maybe are you saying it makes sense to include these in a development impact fees law, but they could be adjusted, or that would be discriminatory if you didn't charge some fees for some types of affordable or ADUs that were like affordable, like the county's proposing with some funding, in that we've talked about here before. So
yes, you can still create some program to subsidize or offset those costs, if that's the question.
So anyway, the fees would exist, and then it would be the public agency's ability to, like you said, subsidize them or in some way, other form. But the law probably requires that fee to exist if it's there, that it's in the law or in the development impact fee structure across the board, so it's being applied equally.
Yes, and if you set up and adopt the program that way, certainly.
Are you? I think you're saying, though, Gary, if we wanted to, we could, as long as it's not applied to an individual situation, but we could create a policy that said ADUs that meet certain criteria, like I think Vice Mayor was saying, those that meet the criteria that we view as really being used for housing, we could create a policy that exempted them from this fee. Is that right? As long as it was clear and not applied in an arbitrary way.
Yes, but there's a different way of going about it.
Okay.
So yes, you can do that, but you need to identify a funding source to backfill that so that your impact fee program is made whole, so that everyone else who pays into it, their money can fund the things that you've charged them for.
Okay.
Right.
So I
had a couple more questions.
Okay, Councilmember Tripp.
And I'm sorry, my ear is blocked up, so if I'm speaking too loudly or not loudly enough, just let me know. So my question was, because I'm thinking about this a little bit, because I think many of these are policy decisions in the sense that the town is not obligated to charge any of this. Is that correct? I mean, there's not a law that says we have to have any of these impact fees. Is that correct?
That's right.
I mean, just in the sense that then we can make decisions. So that leads to my next question about the affordable housing. And it seems like a fairly important policy decision to change it now. And I do understand we can't charge people unless we have a project in mind, and it has to be connected and all that to the project. We can't just randomly start charging money. But it seems like a fairly important policy that we're changing, that we now are going to charge the affordable housing fee to single-family homes. That is a change, correct?
Yes, it is for Yountville.
And has that been, I'm new to the council, previously discussed or approved? I don't necessarily agree or disagree. I'm just trying to understand how it came about, or whether that's still a question that's being asked, whether we think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so the original fee was actually calculated back in 2005. So we're just bringing this to you now to get your feedback on what you'd like to see.
Okay, because previously it says not imposed on residential in footnote 2, so that was the prior policy,
Right.
And now this would be a new policy.
Yes.
Right, okay, so then my other only question was on this exact issue, the affordable housing fee, especially if we start charging residential. I was just looking at how you calculated it, and this would be table 16. So you have the cost of 1 acre of land in Yountville, and this is again assuming that we identify a project at $500,000. I don't think you could actually buy a lot of a small lot in Yountville for $500,000. So that was my first question. And then I noticed you calculated the unit cost, and I might have this wrong, but I think you're saying each unit would be around $300,000, and that seems very low. So I was curious about the land, but then I was also curious how you came up with a per unit cost that was for 10 units. It seemed very low, the actual construction cost.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We try to tie all of our recommendations to data that we could find. So the estimate of the cost of 1 acre was from landsearch.com. I think it depends probably where the acre's located. Like if it's really downtown, that's probably a lot more. So that is a good point. And then and I really would ask you to look at that, especially if these are being applied to commercial development, because I'm not exaggerating to say you couldn't probably buy a lot in Yountville of 4,000 square feet for less than $750,000. So an acre would be many millions of dollars. Great. And the housing unit cost was from the Craftsman Book Company. And I think we pulled that as well from your housing development plan. So we just tried to tie it with, the city of Yountville's actual housing plan.
Well, I don't know, I never looked at the cost of land and the housing, but what would that be per square foot to build?
That's a good question. I'd have to do some more research on that, because it's just says 10 new multi-housing units.
Because in Yountville right now, homeowners are building, and this is crazy, $1,000 a square foot. But even a modest apartment, I think, would be $400 or $500 a square foot probably. So that would be a much bigger number.
Right. Yeah, we can definitely sharpen our pencils on these numbers and come up with something a little higher.
Well, because I think it's supposed to be anyway. And then my other question was, and this goes more to Celia, but you mentioned that every year we have to announce the amount of money that we have collected or have in the DIF fund. Is that correct?
Yes. So those you'll see in Budget Workshop number 3 on the 18th. We do have separate funds for all the impact fees, and we show how much is collected and how much is allocated to the project funds that house the projects that we pay for, that these impact fees help fund.
Okay, because and it's correct that we actually have to spend it?
Yes, and that's part of our routine process every year to look at what projects we have completed, and if we have any impact fees collected that are applicable to those projects that can then be transferred into that fund as a funding source.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions. Thank you.
So You mentioned that there was an undergrounding project. You're not going to charge for undergrounding. So, again, we do have a policy, which even though, let's just say, we didn't want to charge here, that, if there is new build, that they're responsible for their frontage of undergrounding that. So what was the project that you're referring to that you're estimating $200,000 to be used?
This is I think, go ahead.
So right now, it's evolving as this study is coming forward, and based on conversations we're having with council. But we have identified a project in town that's feasible for undergrounding that wasn't undergrounded when the subdivision was built. Everything around it is undergrounded, and the $200,000 is the initial design, engineering design fee, or not fee, but it's the money to generate the engineering in order to underground it. But the undergrounding costs are so high that we'll be seeking another funding source to do the actual undergrounding.
So you will see that in budget workshop number 3, again, in the proposed 23-24 budget.
Okay. And then, based on our discussion today, give us an approximate timeline based on our input, when this would come back, maybe when's the deadline that the council, or is there one that the council would need to approve?
I don't believe there is a deadline. I think that we were trying to possibly have a public hearing in June to review the final draft and propose adoption of the new fees to be implemented July 1. These fees are increased annually on July 1, so it would be good timing. However, it does not have to be July 1. Depending on council direction, if you'd like this to come back as an administrative item for more discussion and feedback prior to having the public hearing, we could do that as well.
Okay. So back to undergrounding one more time. So our current policy about undergrounding still stands, and we can always look at that later, but an individual is responsible for that if there is a new build. But is there any way that, well, I suppose we can add impact fees for undergrounding? I know undergrounding is usually expensive. These impact fees would probably be minimal to contribute to that, but that's also something we could ask that be included instead of zero.
Yes, and I apologize for not letting Michael know that we had this proposed project coming forward in the new budget, which is why he didn't include it in the calculations.
Okay. So what is the calculation now for impact fees, if that you're proposing right now in this budget? I mean, in this workshop for impact fees.
So the current fees are $1,915.
I have my wrong glasses on. That's $1,150. Okay, I see that now. All right. So, and then that would be going forward until we changed it.
Correct.
Right. But right now, what you're saying, just they're earmarked for this other project.
Correct.
But they could. How long is that going to take to get there with those? It's really hard to say because we don't really know what the development is. Correct.
Correct, and we do have about $112,000 that we have already collected in undergrounding fees that will be helping to fund this project. And I guess based on the results of this project, which is kind of setting the groundwork for future projects, we will know if we can have additional projects in the future, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. So we have a placeholder. Okay, those are my questions. Any more additional questions? Councilmember Reeves. I guess you're getting cool enough.
I kind of understand the change in the fees for the water capacity and sewer, and the reason why they're going down, and the sort of overall push by the state to reduce fees so that housing is generally more affordable. But I'm a little bit maybe not up on the calculation or the reason why, like, civic facilities goes down like 4 times the normal what we were. And then the suggestion that we might not need to have a public safety impact fee when this community is so public safety oriented. So maybe you can explain maybe the underlying premise for the fee review.
Yes. So in terms of the fee going down, essentially we can only consider the actual capital improvements that you're planning. It's basically we can look out 5 years, and if you don't construct the facilities, then there's a requirement to refund them. So it's important that we base it on the actual numbers. So that's one component, and the second is that we can include any buy-in due to basically legal developments that were included in the 2005 study. So that's why some of the fees have been reduced.
So like the public safety one going to zero can't include the fact that our fire department is going to charge us $1 million more dollars. Is that a buy-in fee then?
Well, I think that would be considered general services, and impact fees cannot be imposed for general services.
Okay.
Since we don't have a project like the firehouse isn't ours to maintain or repair, so we can't connect that fee to an upcoming project in our 5-year CIP. And kind of the same thing with the civic facilities. I think when that was established in 2005, the main premise of that one was to help with the community center project to collect fees for that facility. And so that has been completed, so we don't have that large of a need for civic facility impact fees.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a follow?
Just 1 second. You have any other questions? Okay, Councilmember Tripp, another question.
Can I ask a follow-up? Because I had the same thought as Pam, and then I realized we do pay, of course, for our public safety, like fire, through a contract with the county. But I have heard people here mention like buying a fire engine, which sounds a lot like a capital thing. Is that not something that we could, or maybe that's come and gone? I don't know. I guess that's my question. I'm sure you've looked at whether. So anyway, that's my question. Something like a fire engine. I don't know if we buy the sheriff's cars. I know we maintain. No. So there's no capital involved in any of those.
And I believe, to your point of the fire engine, I think that $18,000 a year we were paying as a portion of that fire engine was part of the prior contract and is now done. So it's not a future 5-year CIP project that we could connect to an impact fee.
Okay. So if we were to revise these more on a more rapid schedule when a capital project came up. So let's just say Yountville decided, for whatever strange reason, to build the fire station. If we had that on the agenda, we could raise these fees. Is that right? I mean, not raise them, but we would go back through the process and determine what would be appropriate. Is that correct?
Yes, theoretically, I believe if the council had decided to build that facility, they could calculate and impose an impact fee to help fund it.
Okay, yeah, that was just my question. So this is really kind of a, for lack of a better word, voluntary exercise, I mean, on the part of the town to determine these fees.
I'll let Gary go. Well, I'll let Gary go, but it's not really.
Let me just to preempt this. I apologize, Mayor. Is it voluntary? Because I know at a league meeting a couple years ago, we went to a workshop where the fact is that maybe the state is requiring cities now to review these every 4 or 5 years because there literally were communities that were in 2010 had not changed development impact fees since like 1979, which I mean puts a massive strain on a community that's already living there when you add homes. So I thought my understanding was generally we have to do this about every 5 years now by state law.
Yes. The town is required to switch to the new process of calculating these based on square footage or making specific findings that there's a better way to show proportionality And so you do currently impose impact fees that's not under that new standard. And so you do, to the extent you are going to continue to impose impact fees, they do need to be under the new analysis and standard by state law, which is what this report will do for the fees. So this is a new standard that the state's imposing. It's part of the housing crisis bills that were passed. It does apply. The state is giving you a window to correct and move into the new system. You all are at the front end of that window, which is great. You're being proactive to move over to the new system to do it. But if not now, you will need to do this by the deadline that the state has imposed, which I think is a couple years out. And given the amount of time since the last time these were assessed, staff felt like now was the time to bring this forward and switch over to the new process under state law.
And, okay, and just to the point of, I don't know if voluntary is the word I would use, or no, I'm not really sure, but yes, we can, let's just say that something happens in a year and the fire station burns up or something, and we have to build a new one, and we decide to make a different situation. We update these. I mean, this is something that the council controls. What we've done is we've hired a consultant, same consulting company that helps us, figure out what's the right amount of water and wastewater charges. So it might be something, depending on what we're really talking about and how much we know, that staff could, develop that fee, or we would, again, go back to Bartle Wells or somebody equivalent and get that information and go back and approve this through the council. So that would be the process, how that would work. So I'm going to go to public comment, and we're going to then come back to the council for some final discussion, and I hope staff will make sure that we're giving you the appropriate information you're looking for. So anybody from the public would like to comment on our impact fee presentation? Seeing none, I guess we'll bring it back. So who wants to make some comments first? Everyone's looking down, so I'm going to make my comments. So, and then we'll go around. So, yeah, got to jump in there. All right, so I definitely, I think all this looks good. I really want to keep your plan in there for undergrounding. And I don't really have any other changes I'd probably make at this time. Were there any, so a question to staff, was there anything else that, and I do agree that you already have some direction, but we'll let Councilmember Tripp give you real direction on what she would like to see, so I'll just stay out of that discussion right now. Was there anything else that you found was a little challenging, and so you kind of came up with this number that you thought, well, the council may or may not want to weigh in on this? Anything that you were maybe uncertain about that you'd like some more information from us?
Not that I can recall. I think there are a couple other staff here that were on the meetings with Bartle Wells. I did want to add that Councilmember Tripp is correct. The affordable housing, where we were looking at the $500,000 for a plot of land, that was discussed as possibly a little low. And I think, being that this is a draft report, we left it to kind of see what feedback was, and we can definitely tighten up that calculation. But I don't think there was anything else that we were really wondering or anxious about.
Okay. And so these fees, until we change them, will pretty much be fixed. And so you don't add any CPI escalator or anything like that year to year, correct?
They do go up each July based on the engineering news record CPI adjustment.
Okay.
Planning department usually takes care of that, and that is noted in the master fee schedule.
Okay. And so that is basically, that's our policy.
Correct.
That we've created. Okay. So we'll take a look at that. All right. Now I see heads up. Council Member Reeves, would you like to have your comments?
I think I'm very supportive of these proposed fees, and I feel like the trade-off of lowering some fees to make sure they represent reality, and then really beefing up for affordable housing fair share fee is important. and I would support taking a second look to make sure that that's a realistic number.
Councilmember McKee Kent.
A totally new kind of field for me to look at, so I'm a little the greenest one here, but I'm following along. I had a little bit of confusion on the methodology, but you kind of cleared that up. As long as we are all in agreement on the future capital projects and how far out they're known when we're looking at how the fees are charged, that was a little bit of a gray area for me. So I know I am in agreement that we need to cover for affordable housing and make kind of what's the word, consensus, or to be able to help people build ADUs in the back of their yards or on their property. But everything else looks in line to me. So thanks for your patience.
Okay, very welcome.
Yeah.
Councilmember Tripp.
I'm in support of the idea and the change. I realize this was done in 2005, so the world is, or the last full study was 2005, so the world has changed. So I'm in support of adding affordable housing to the residential. I really would, I think just hearing what Gary's saying, it's not an easy lift to decide which ADUs and how ADUs should be charged. But I would like to leave a placeholder open at some point to have that discussion. With when I was on the zoning board, you see ADUs being built really as an extension of a home, as a way for a new house, as a way of getting more square footage, which I don't argue with, but that's one kind of ADU. But then hopefully we have some folks building ADUs that are actually renting them or living in them themselves and renting the house. And if possible, it would be nice to think about how we could craft the fees to make that less expensive, especially if we're, I mean, candidly, we would be raising the affordable housing, but then charging the ADUs more. So, because they are part of that assessment. So that's sort of an aside. But just in general, I'm very big on the possibility of ADUs that people could actually use or rent. So I don't know exactly how we would do that, but I would like to leave that placeholder open if possible to have that discussion. I don't feel, based on what Gary was saying about how we have to make sure we make up the money from a different source, I would need to get, I feel like I would need more advice to understand how to draw that line. And then, of course, the whole question of whether anybody else agrees with that idea. But that seems like it would require a separate discussion.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I generally agree that development impact fees are important for a community because what we're doing is the new home build is contributing to the infrastructure of the community there, and so it's always a challenge when you're talking about trying to make affordable housing affordable that you're adding, at least from this report, Table 1, $26,000, going down from $30,000 to $26,000 in fees to build a home. But we also know that when folks are coming in and buying a lot, like in Old Town, like right now, there's a lot across the street from me that's a 4,000 square foot lot with an 80-year-old home on it, and the lot's for sale for $900,000. So that lot is likely to be a second home for someone, and so there's a contribution a new homeowner coming into town has to make. I guess generally I agree with what Councilmember Tripp and others have said, is that I'd like a broader discussion as we move forward of how we use these fees can either help and contribute to ADUs and these accessory structures that actually contribute to housing in our community. And I understand the development impact fee has to be in place, but we can come up with creative ways to promote or encourage that ADU to be an affordable unit, and that's another discussion. So I support what we're doing here, and thank you for the work putting this together, and thank you, Mr. DeGroot. Thank you.
So I'm going to summarize for staff, and staff can tell me if I'm not summarizing. So there were land sizes and building square footage. You're going to go back and sharpen your pencils, as you say, on those numbers. And also, I think we're clear that we're going to put in the fee for the ADU based on those parameters. But I think what you're hearing from the council is that if we could at least maybe have some general discussion before this is totally finalized, maybe reviewing our ADA policy right now, if it does meet the standards, what the standards are for actually renting it out to low income or just market rate income, and how then that would actually, any changes that we might want to make in the future based on these new numbers. So I think we want to have that discussion before these are actually finalized. That's why I was asking the question about, do we have a drop-dead date for that? So does that summarize what you think you heard?
Yes.
All right, good, great. Is that what, okay, we're all in agreement. Ready. Well, thank you very much. Work with Barlow Wells on lots of rate studies. So once again, great job for working all your algorithms on putting this together. And it sounds like you just have a little extra work to do. So thank you, Celia, as well.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to take public comment. Is there any? No, I did ask. No, nobody came up. Okay, that's what happened. All right, thank you. Let's see. Next on our list, public hearings. We have none. Administrative items. We have none. And staff informational reports. None. Council meetings and reports. I think, Councilmember Reeves, you have Climate Action Regional Committee to talk about.
Yeah, I have two items. Hillary's going to help me with one of them, but the first one is at our last meeting, I reported out that the Climate Action Committee approved having alternate members appointed at each of the jurisdictions. So I'd like to make sure that we schedule a discussion and an appointment time at one of our meetings coming up soon, I hope. And then the second part is that Hillary and I met as climate action representatives with two high school young women who are co-leaders of the Napa Schools for Climate Action. And they are being mentored by a teacher advisor named Jim Wilson at Napa High School. And their motto is, "No school should be a silent witness to the climate crisis." And they were really focused on the use of the word crisis, because in their estimation, since this is the world they are going to inherit, the time for action was way before now. So with that, they are putting forth two asks for local government, and they presented those to us. And we are hoping that this council would entertain the idea of having a presentation from these young women who are very persuasive and very active in their communities. Both of them are interns for Mike Thompson's office. One is an intern for the Sierra Club, as well as all of their AP classes and leadership roles. So their asks are a ban on new or expanded gas stations. We have one in town. I think that might be a discussion we could have. And the second ask is something near and dear to all of our hearts anyway, which is trees. And their ask is to maintain and enhance urban forests as net carbon sinks. And their research is showing that when you cut an older tree, you lose so much more carbon sequestration that the new ones that are planted take a while to actually live up to that standard, and that the best policy would be to have a tighter tree ordinance, not just for heritage trees, but for all trees. And so maybe that's something we could look at, but I really would love for them to give the presentation to the council as a whole.
That's something staff can work on. I know we've got a couple pretty busy agendas coming up. And I think that group was here about a year and a half ago as well. But
Yes, if the council would like us to do that, we can work it into the agendas.
I would like it.
I would.
Thank you. I would too.
25 nods, so yes.
I'm not sure it's not going to happen. I know what the next few look like, but it will. Okay. It was.
Yeah, I didn't have
Maybe one
anything to
after
add.
that.
You covered it pretty well, Pam, and it was a very inspiring, because this is their issue at 16. They're going to be living almost into the 22nd century. So I was really inspired by them, and they had good ideas. So I would totally support us listening to them as a whole.
Okay, any other council meeting reports? Councilmember McKee Kent.
So I attended the Napa Valley TID meeting with regards to the Yountville team. Pretty much a lot of what we've heard from Whitney has been done in marketing, but in this year going forward, the shipyard has been using the same campaign for Yountville since 2017, leveraging the walkability of our town. Previously, the campaign was on and effective October through February only. This year, the approval, we're going to move forward with Always On campaign, and the targeting is affluent 25 to 54-year-olds with a travel mindset. Social media has been successful, but going forward, plans are to focus on quantity, and to forget the focus on quantity of hits, but more focus on quality and the impression delivery. So that for 2024, we're looking at building awareness for the Drive Napa Valley visitors, not just to Napa Valley, but to Yountville specifically. We are funded Vine Trail again. What was new out of them was that good news that the Vista Point that is at the end of, is that Madison? Washington. They're actually going to build kind of a ramp there, and they are feeling very positive that the Napa Valley sign, it will be moved. It's not a done deal yet, but with the ramp there for pictures and that Vista view in behind, it could be very positive place for Yountville to have be in everybody's pictures and in social media. Napa Valley Museum has a goal of driving and elevating the cultural experience. They took the Julia Child show that was so successful on the road to museums around United States, and it was well received. Dangerous Games is the next one up, since that was such a popular show. So it's raising the museum profile and promoting business in Yountville out of state, which is great. And the meeting again in August, Whitney brought up the idea of Taste in Yountville, and that has been well received from wineries and tasting rooms, but she wants to work with them a little longer to make sure that they still have that strong drive and interest. But they'd be looking at TID funding for that in 2024 if the wineries are still on board and as committed. So Visit Napa Valley reported occupancy is a little lower here, but the dollars coming in is the same. Calistoga and Napa are getting more rooms than us, so more money. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much for those reports. So,
Mayor, I have
announcements.
A few reports and then some announcements. But
Yeah, I have some announcements too.
So briefly, Councilmember Reeves and I met with Director Borba and the interim town planner to just talk about process for the Housing Standing Committee. And so we're moving forward with that. I think one of the things that maybe came out of that, just for a quick discussion with council, is that we thought that there may be some benefit, especially after our presentation we heard on Thursday night from Molly Radigan from Napa Housing Authority. It might be an opportunity for council and for the new council members in the near future, after we maybe have a new town manager on board, to invite Erica Scalar from Napa Valley Community Housing and Molly Radigan from Napa Housing Authority, Napa Valley Housing Authority to talk to us about the housing we have in town and maybe opportunities just generally about housing issues and how they could help us. That would be a bit helpful to maybe plan that out when maybe sometime in July or August or something like that.
On that thought, when's our regularly scheduled Housing Authority meeting with?
That is in the Mayor. That's the second meeting in January.
Second meeting in January. Okay, thank you for that. All right.
I was thinking at some point maybe be better sooner. Also, just for potentially when we have a new town manager on board, as an introduction to the resources we have in community for affordable housing, and maybe something to plan as a workshop for the council and new town manager. The other item that I thought at some point we may need to talk about is we got into a little an issue with our Napa Valley the Napa Valley USD School District 2x2 Standing Committee, that we were going to meet just to have an introductory discussion with them, and we found as a standing committee we had to have it locally, but we really are wanting to just meet with them, and they just wanted to report with us what was going on generally with Napa Valley Unified School District. So at some point maybe we need to have a discussion about whether this 2x2 committee should be a standing committee or an ad hoc, so that we could potentially meet with Napa Valley Unified School District outside of the town limits of Yountville. So just a conversation maybe to have eventually with our manager or town attorney about what would be our best way to continue that 2x2 committee meeting. And that's it for me right now.
Okay, so I'll start off with some announcements for our next regularly scheduled meeting. Memorial Day is coming up, and there will be an event Sunday, I think it's May 29th, at our Pioneer Cemetery at 1 o'clock. And then on Memorial Day, Monday, that will be May...
The 29th, I think.
28th is the Sunday at the George C. Yount Cemetery at 1 o'clock. Monday, Memorial Day service at the Veterans Home. It will be at 10 a.m. And
where's that one?
That's
the cemetery.
Up at the Veterans Cemetery.
At the cemetery,
If you haven't, and
No,
you'll be able to, it'll be open, so you won't have to go through the guard shack and say who you are. That's going to be open that day for that event. So if you haven't been to that cemetery, it's pretty much just on the opposite side of campus when you first come up the hill, and you see there the General Services Building. Back behind the post office. Most people don't even know we have two post offices in Yountville, but we do. One's at the Veterans Home and one's on Washington Street. And then we have other announcements.
And if you've never been in that post office, it's a beautiful old post office. It is quite, it's just historic inside. No, just that for the Memorial Day service on Monday the 29th, I know the mayor's there and will be speaking, and the town of Yountville and the Kiwanis Club of Yountville present wreaths for that service that's then taken up to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at the top of the hill. So 10 o'clock on Monday, it is a memorable service that the Veterans Home puts on, and there's a lot of veterans at that event. This Friday, the 19th, at the Napa Valley College Up Valley campus on College Avenue in St. Helena, is the Napa County Emergency Preparedness Resource Fair. That's from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. There was one in Napa just this past Friday, but there'll be a number of organizations there, and they talk about raffles and helpful resources on available programs and services to help people be more prepared in case of an emergency. So that's this Friday, the 19th at 4 p.m. at the Up Valley campus in St. Helena.
And that reminds me, there's a St. Helena's organizing a climate action workshop that's going to be on May the 24th, I believe.
At Napa Valley College in Napa.
Yeah, so that'll be down, and that starts at 9 a.m. And there's a lot of info on social media. You can contact Anna Chateau and sign up. They're just trying to get a number count for that as well. And Councilmember Tripp, did you have some announcements?
I didn't have an announcement, but I have an agenda request, so when that's appropriate, you could just let me know.
Okay, and what would that be?
And I would like to raise the issue and see then what other council members think. But we got a number of public comments about the bee. People actually made formal public comments in writing, and as many of you might have read on Nextdoor, 50 or 60 villagers responded about the bee, which is a large number, more than I've seen almost on any other issue. And the question getting down to the appropriateness of the bee in terms, and this is the bus, of size. Nobody argues at all with having, of course, a non-gas powered vehicle, but there are questions raised about the size and also just the aesthetics of it in terms of the way it's painted and whatnot. So given how strongly a number of people feel, and also raised some really good points, I wanted to know if anybody else had an interest in putting that on the agenda, and then also I wasn't quite sure what the topic would be, and whether we should involve the transportation district as well in any discussion. So I just wanted to open up that question to the rest of the council.
And just to that point, something else that we could consider, we can work with staff, that Kate Miller did reach out to me, because we've been in contact with her about, getting more information that, we shared with all the council members, that she'd be willing to, have discussions with people. So that might be, another way to kind of do that. Eric and I will be attending and I think our interim director will as well, the MVTA strategic planning meeting tomorrow. So perhaps we can bring back some more information about maybe another option, how that might work in terms of something for the public to attend. Do we do it more informally, maybe, the community center, or make it a council agenda? So maybe we could...
Yeah, I don't know how the other council members feel about... my main goal is it's not unusual to have such a strong public opinion, but it is a little unusual, and I just feel it's incumbent on us to, as a council, respond. Although I do understand, of course, we need to involve the agency, and there was a grant involved in getting it. And so there's a lot of complexities, but I just want to be responsive to the public on this issue.
Yeah, I just think the challenge is how we communicate, because I agree. I mean, we definitely should respond to residents, and I think what we just need is the opportunity to provide some history and background, how we kind of, the trolley before kind of fell into our lap. It was the trolley for downtown Napa. They discontinued it, and we said we had a very utilitarian type transit bus back then, and we said we'll take it, and it had a long history here in Yountville since the probably 15 or 20 years before after it was stopped being used in Napa. But it definitely, there's all this conversation that bus was not energy efficient. It was a problem. It was falling apart, and we're trying to promote energy efficiency. I think some of the things, like, it may be as much as anything the color of that bus that makes it seem like it's larger, because I think I remember when we first had it When we talked about it a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, maybe when I was first on the council, it's basically about the same size as the other trolley, but just a lot more prominent because of the color. And so anyway, maybe it's just a continuing conversation, but I think somehow we should address that because there's a lot of residents that have expressed an opinion about it.
Councilmember McKee Kent.
I agree that we need to share information about the bus. For example, I didn't realize that it was literally the same size as the trolley. It seemed bigger to me. I think it is taller. The communication and the team, I mean, just like any transit in the Bay Area, the hiring is a problem right now. So the original post that came on Nextdoor actually was about service levels, and I had experienced kind of the same kind of service levels with the trolley when we first moved to town before 2020 set in and COVID hit. But whether or not we change the colors, I do think that we could do a better job with branding on it. It does not say Yountville anywhere, so guests in town or even people that have part-time homes and seen it buzz around, they may not know that it's free. They may not know that it is for the community to use. So I think we could do something better with that. And I actually understand that there was some thought in selecting the bee, not only that it's a pollinator, but that there was the Be Kind movement going on. So there's a lot of things that we could educate the public on that might make them realize it is electric. That's a good thing. It does service our vets like no other trolley can. That's a great thing.
If I can, I'm sorry to interrupt midstream. If I can suggest to the council, if you'd like to have this discussion,
I'm going too far. Sorry.
Agendize it for a future meeting.
Okay.
So,
could I just add?
Yes.
I support the idea of bringing someone from NVTA to give us a presentation and to discuss what options there might or might not be, and then we could address people's concerns.
Okay, so.
And I'm sorry, Mayor, also to address service levels too, which I think that is important and that people are concerned about that.
So I'm hearing a majority of the council would like to put this on a future agenda and discuss the B, bus, and service levels.
But I think we really need to have Kate Miller here.
Yes,
She's the expert who will have all the answers.
Yes.
So
And
we can work with her tomorrow.
Correct.
And see what works best with her before we decide if it's going to be a workshop at the community center or something on our agenda.
Understood.
Okay.
So a workshop, though, that would be a formal meeting, correct? Or I'm just asking when you mentioned workshop as opposed to putting it on the agenda. I kind of like putting it on the agenda, but if a workshop was a formal meeting. So anyway, I just wanted to ask you for clarity on that, Mayor.
Yeah, either one will be a meeting, and there'll be an agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, just a matter of how many people show up and where we want to have it and who's going to be talking. Okay, any other announcements?
I do have one, if now's the time.
Yes,
I would
please.
like to announce or remind the council that at the next meeting on June 6th at 2:30, we will be raising the pride flag in front of Town Hall at 2:30, just in advance of the 3 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
On June 6th.
Thank you for that. And Town Attorney, do we have a closed session?
Yes, there's one closed session this evening, conference with labor negotiator. That's under Government Code 54957.6. Mayor is the negotiator, and it involves your incoming town manager.
Do we expect any reportable action?
We do not. If there is reportable action, it will be reported out after the closed session, but it is not expected.
And if anybody is in the audience after closed session, I plan to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting today in memory of Jim Wynn. So with that, thank you very much.